Hey folks, David Stewart here. Got this little trophy here. This is the head of Hogger, this elite NPC that took several people to slay to finally kill this elusive guy and bring back his head in his hands. I kept his head as a trophy to remember my adventures in Elwyn Forest, lo, these many years ago. I'd like to talk a little bit about World of Warcraft and Blizzard Entertainment more generally. And my thesis for this video is that the decline of Blizzard has been going on a lot longer than people realize or are willing to admit. And I'd like to just give my opinion and my perspective, backing that up, if you will. Lately, of course, the last couple weeks, we've had a big lawsuit here in the state of California come out regarding workplace conditions and discrimination and harassment and all those sorts of things. I really think this is the straw that broke the camel's back for a lot of Blizzard streamers and a lot of players of Blizzard games. I think really when I say it's the straw that broke the camel's back, it's given an excuse for a lot of people, including Preach Gaming, to hop off of World of Warcraft and say, I'm going to stop doing this, because they've really actually been unsatisfied with the game for a long time. But you finally have a really concrete reason to say, okay, well, it's time for us to hang this up. Truth is, I think it's really a condition of bad game design going back years and being bad to players, being anti-consumer for a lot of years now. And I go back and I look at my videos that I've made on this channel. 5 years ago, I made a video called The 10 Worst Game Design Decisions in WoW, in World of Warcraft. That was 5 years ago. They haven't fixed those bad game design decisions, and they've only added to them since then with legendary items and Azerite gear and all kinds of other weird mechanics that they throw into the game, which pretty much universally make the game worse. But the point is that 5 years ago, I'd been talking about a history of bad game design decisions. The bad decisions at Blizzard go back way longer than the last 3 weeks. They go back longer than Shadowlands. They go back longer than Battle for Azeroth or Legion. They go way back into the past, and that's really what I'd like to sort of expand on today. So the idea of Blizzard quality and gameplay first, and Blizzard being a game company for players, I think this reputation really came into being in the mid-aughts, the mid-2000s. In the early 2000s and late 90s, we got a whole bunch of Blizzard games, and every single one of them was good. We got, Warcraft, Warcraft 2, Diablo, StarCraft, Diablo 2 in 2000, and then we got Warcraft 3, Reign of Chaos in 2002, and finally World of Warcraft in 2004. All of those games were top of their class. They were amazing games the time that they were released, and their popularity endured. They're still good games to go and play today. StarCraft in particular, I remember because when I went to the university, lots of people moved into their dorm rooms, and that was the first time they had high-speed internet access. It was like year 2000, 2001. And so playing on Battle.net was a big deal for a lot of students at that time, because people were going from dial-up at their parents' house to high-speed internet at the university, where there was like T5 lines or something hooking the school up, and they could play on Battle.net against other people like them, and there was a great competitive scene. So StarCraft was really big about 2000. Of course, Diablo 2 was a really big online game in 2000 for a lot of people, that they were able to play it in their dorm rooms. And then 2002, you had Warcraft 3, Reign of Chaos, and that was one of the best RTS games I've played. It had an absolutely amazing single-player campaign. The gameplay really pushed what Blizzard had established in Warcraft 2 and StarCraft. It pushed it forward, and it brought lots of new things to the table. It created a whole genre of games just with a map, which was Defense of the Ancients, Dota. So if you like playing League of Legends, you like playing Dota 2, that started with Warcraft 3 way back in 2002, setting the ground, the base for all of those amazing gameplay possibilities that would come later. And then, of course, you got World of Warcraft at the end of 2004, which became the biggest MMO ever. It took several years to grow up to its peak in, I think, 2010 at 12.5 million subscribers. That's a lot. So their third expansion, Wrath of the Lich King, was the biggest one. They exceeded 10 million subs. They went up to 12 million. That was the height of popularity of World of Warcraft. In a lot of ways, that was the height of WoW culture. I really think the true height of WoW culture occurred before that in a Gaming Ground Zero game, which was Burning Crusade, the first expansion. That was really the height of World of Warcraft, particularly as an in-game experience and just having all the stuff that existed in World of Warcraft. Wrath of the Lich King was a very good expansion, but that to me was really the beginning of the end of World of Warcraft, and that was where the bad gameplay decisions, bad game design decisions started to enter into the equation, and where there started to be a lot more what I would consider anti-customer design elements. Now, the merger with Activision back in 2008 is where most people point the finger and say that's where the bad quality began. But I think maybe it took a couple years for any kind of corporate influence to start changing the culture of Blizzard and how it did things. Prior to Wrath of the Lich King, prior to the merger with Activision, the games were designed with a lot of attitudes towards, that's a cool idea, we'll put it in the game. Gameplay was first, but there was also a lot of wackiness. If you played original vanilla WoW, there was all kinds of strange things in it. There was books to pick up off the ground and read. There was spells that were unbalanced. There were items that were just completely wacky that cast meteors down from the sky. There was all kinds of odd things where like, that would be cool, we'll put it in the game. And that was a game design approach that gave you things like the cow level, things like that. So that approach started to go away and get replaced with an approach that was about how can we control the consumer, how can we control the customer's experience, how can we make it a completely streamlined, balanced, and controlled experience, and how can we manipulate the most money out of the consumer. And the moment that I really point to as this is in Wrath of Lich King. Now, Wrath started with reused content. It started with a 10 and 25 man version of Naxxramas, which was a 40-man raid from vanilla. A lot of people didn't really get to do Nax when it was current, so some people were excited about this, but should have been a little bit of a our first raid is actually old content, but it kind of fit the whole theme of Wrath of the Lich King, so most people didn't really blink. Then, of course, you got Ulduar, which in my opinion was the best raid that they ever put out. But something happened at the end of, I think, 2009. I think August 2009 was the TOC patch, Trial of the Crusader. This came out after Ulduar, and it was a single-room raid. You walked into this room, and you fought a bunch of bosses. And this was the first time that I was aware that they were trying to get my money rather than giving me entertainment. Because what happened was, I was in a raiding guild at the time, and we went in, and the first week it was out, you could only fight the first boss. I think it was that big Yeti boss. So you could fight the first boss. And the first boss was really easy on normal. You couldn't even do heroic until you had beaten normal. Once normal had been cleared, then heroic would open up. So it was normal mode, 25 man, and it dropped a item level 245 weapon. And I remember the item level because item level had crept into the game at this point, people being very aware of it. I had an item level 232 weapon that I got off Yogg-Saron. So I got off the hardest boss in the game at that point. And then here drops this weapon that's better, and people were like, ooh, gimme, and I became totally aware, like, oh, this completely wipes out, this is such a jump in item level, it will completely wipe out everything we did with hard mode Ulduar. All of the hard mode Ulduar stuff is going to be gone, because it was all like item level 232 stuff, other than I think a couple of items that, maybe off of Algalon or something like that. So it was like, whoa, this is just going to completely wipe out what I did. Whatever, I didn't quit right away. Week 2, 2 bosses. Week 3, 3 bosses, until you got 6 bosses. So they made it 6 weeks, which meant I had to pay for 2 months of World of Warcraft before we could do hard mode, and then we did hard mode, and then we cleared hard mode, and there was some like guild drama and stuff at the time, and I was like, okay, I'm done. I'm done with World of Warcraft. This is the first time I had ever canceled my WoW sub from the very first time that I bought the game. I had never not paid for a month of World of Warcraft. I've never skipped a month playing World of Warcraft. That's how good the game was. Okay. I had not put this game down, but I looked at that and I said, it's not worth my $15, especially now that I decided to quit a raiding guild. I don't want to spend 6 months in this one little room farming these bosses. 6 weeks after it was out, like the hard mode was on farm. And I realized that they had gated that content to get 2 months of sub time out of me rather than just delivering the entire dungeon up front and making it, setting it up in such a way that it was like a natural next step progression. And so that was the first time that I really stopped playing the game. And I started playing the game when the Lich King was going to come out, and I found a new guild to raid with, and I had a great time with that. And, various times over the next however many years, I would quit the game and come back because there was a content drought, or the game wasn't fun, or they were putting systems in the game that wasn't fun. And so that was the moment where I realized that they were trying to get my money out of me rather than deliver me a good experience. But as I think critically about it now, this goes even further back. There was this issue really from the beginning of servers. Servers being low population and servers being way too high population, and Blizzard trying to even those out. One thing Blizzard never did was close servers. They never merged servers in order to make the populations high enough to support in-game rating and really high enough to support a good player experience. There was lots of people stuck on low population realms that were having a terrible experience in World of Warcraft. How did they fix it? Well, they said you could pay them like $25 and transfer to a high population server, and that was going to fix your woes. And they offered free transfers off of really overcrowded servers to other low population servers, which then people would pay to transfer back to high population servers. And that actually started after the Activision merger. So people were paying for server transfers during Burning Crusade, and it was a big deal. Like back in Classic, we had to re-roll. Me and my friends were playing Horde at one point on a low population server, and we had to re-roll and play Alliance on this other server with their old guild and my friend's old guild. So we rolled new characters. We made new characters. We couldn't faction transfer. And then I remember towards the end of Wrath, like the entire guild I was playing with eventually changed all their characters into Horde because the Horde to Alliance ratio had gotten so bad that it was like 100 Horde to like 1 Alliance, which is a terrible experience on a PvP server. So rather than, actually trying to fix that, they just monetized the flaw of their game. They said, give us some more money and we'll fix it. They had that going even before the problems with TOC, but it got really bad in Wrath of the Lich King. And from there, you continue to have things. When the Hearthsteed mount showed up during Wrath of the Lich King, which meant that they were going to sell cosmetics on their store. I don't like the store. I don't like all of those services being offered. All of those are just generally ways to extract money. And at a certain point with Warlords of Draenor, they stopped giving sub numbers because the subs dropped off. They went up to 10 million and they dropped off so dramatically because there was no content to do in Warlords of Draenor, and Warlords of Draenor was so bad with their, with the garrisons and all that, garrison mission manager and all that kind of crap. So WoD was so bad, especially at the beginning, with their one raid and nothing else to do and no open world because you just were in your little garrison clicking mining nodes, that they stopped publishing sub numbers and said, well, we actually make more of our money. Subs aren't that important, which might have been truthful. They really made their money extracting more than $15 a month out of the fanatics that were going to stick with World of Warcraft no matter what. And years later, it just took so much bad expansion after bad expansion before people were finally like, I've had enough. I'm not going to play WoW. I've talked to multiple friends on Twitter, multiple friends here on the channel. They're like, I haven't canceled my WoW sub in 15 years, and I canceled it. And it wasn't the lawsuit. The lawsuit was the straw that broke the camel's back. The lawsuit just kind of showed what we all knew, which was that the corporate culture at Blizzard was probably pretty messed up, no matter which direction you want to come in with that. And I'm quitting. I'm going to head off into the sunset and play a different game. My guildies are all quitting. We're all stopping the game. It's just like a collapse that happens at the end. But really, it's something that's been built up for a long time. After Wrath of the Lich King, you got Cataclysm. Cataclysm wiped out the old world and replaced it with a hyper-efficient new world, which just didn't have the charm of the old world. And the reason everybody wanted Classic back is Classic was a better version of the game. We didn't want Classic back just because we had nostalgia for it. I played Classic on private servers multiple times before Blizzard released their own Classic servers. Every time I played Classic, I was like, this is so much better than the current game, especially if what you want to do is be a casual person who levels and just experiences the World of Warcraft. If you're just sort of person who wants to enter in and maybe casually level up, Classic is so much more fun than the newer versions. And they even ruined Classic. They allowed so many bots in Classic that, and this was after I quit Classic. I quit Classic basically not because I wasn't enjoying Classic, but because I was I just didn't want to support Blizzard anymore. And I came back and played the new expansion because my friends were playing it and I just really wanted to experience the game with them. So yeah, hypocrite that I am, I went back and played with them. But, bots in Classic destroying the economy, making it so that the zones were just dead and empty. It wasn't that way back in 2005. In 2005, every zone was full of people playing, leveling, just enjoying the game, not worrying so much about in-game. Yeah, there were people who had, even if you had a character that you played in-game, chances are you loved the game so much you were leveling another character through all the zones anyway, because it was that fun to play the game. It was so much fun to play back in the day. But we've had expansion after expansion of just not a lot of quality. All the content's pushed towards the in-game, and then there's nothing really going on in in-game. You have things like Raid Finder that degrade the experience of in-game. You have things like easy dungeons, general nerfing of the World of Warcraft, so that the only challenge comes at the end game where you're doing like mythic raiding or heroic raiding or something like that. That's the only challenge that exists in the game. Everything else is just so easy it becomes boring. It becomes completely boring. So if you're not a person that's actively doing heroic raiding, the game is boring. Your expansion comes out, it's interesting aesthetically to see what's going on, and then the game becomes boring while you prepare to do heroic and mythic raiding. What a bad state that the game has been in for so long. But I actually think that there's a little bit more to it than that. So I'm going to just mention some things that aren't World of Warcraft for a few minutes, and then that's basically what I'm going to say. Is like, that was the first time I canceled my account, was back in 2000, at the end of 2009. In 2010, StarCraft 2 came out, and StarCraft 2 was a huge disappointment for me, following up Warcraft 3 Reign of Chaos. To me, it felt like a huge step back from Warcraft 3 in terms of gameplay. There just wasn't much there as far as a single-player campaign goes. There was one. It was way less than what we got with StarCraft. It was way less than what we got with Warcraft 3. There wasn't really all that much story there. It was very apparent that they were focusing hard on esports. Esports is what they wanted. Now, that may have been a good business decision for them. Might have worked out really great. But it was not for the players. The players want to have fun playing a game. It wasn't for me, who just wanted to play an RTS game and have a lot of fun with it and have it be a cool and a good RTS experience. Single player experience was just not all that much. I finished it. There was definitely some fun to be had. And then you got into the hyper-competitive ladder full of people that had been playing since beta who just crushed you immediately because they had more practice. Or then you went down into like a crappy league and you could win 20 times in a row and it still wouldn't give you any more challenging players to play against. What a bad experience for people, though, that just would come in and lose like 40 times in a row to people who'd been playing it in beta for like a year. It was just, in general, it was the first time I ever regretted buying a Blizzard game with StarCraft 2 because it wasn't a fun RTS. And I was like, man, maybe I don't like RTSs anymore. I went and played other RTS games from other companies, and I'm like, no, I like RTS games. I think they're fun. This game was not very fun. This was just no different gameplay from StarCraft. It was just StarCraft with better graphics, and I think that was the intent, was to make an esports game of StarCraft, but with better graphics. You had Diablo 3 come out. It came out in 2012, I think, and it was a shit show when it came out. It had all kinds of problems. It had gear with like monster level. That's how you control difficulty. It had an in-game cash shop. And the in-game cash shop was a big rigmarole. They couldn't even have it in Korea because it violated anti-gambling laws, and just kind of destroyed the whole point of the game was to get cool gear. So if you could just buy it off the auction house, what was the point of the game? They fixed that. Now, they did fix Diablo 3 later on, but the fact that they launched it in that state was really unacceptably bad for Blizzard quality, where we've been used to getting all these games on launch. Warcraft 3, you put the disc in your machine and it worked. You didn't have to download 100 different patches. You didn't have to wait for them to fix it. StarCraft 2 was buggy as hell when it was released. I couldn't believe how buggy that game was. It crashed. It had graphical bugs and glitches. I lost matches because the game would crash. All sorts of issues. And that stuff didn't get fixed for months. Diablo 3 was a really bad launch. You had the Mists of Pandaria launch in 2012 where people are like, pandas are dumb. And they kind of lost the plot as far as keeping players interested in the game. They're like, well, you can have 1,000 different daily quests. That'll keep you engaged rather than like vanilla, you could log in anytime in vanilla and have just like endless amount of stuff that you could do, and it never felt that way in Pandaria. It always felt like until later in the expansion when they fixed a lot of things that there just wasn't that much to do besides boring daily quests. And that was their idea of filling in your time. Well, you have infinite daily quests and infinite factions to grind and have fun with that. Hearthstone came out, and that was a big gachapon game. It was a game built around randomness, and unless you were willing to pay to get all of the cards, pay to get lots of random decks to build the cards that you want, or pay to randomly get the cards that you wanted, you really couldn't compete after all. I played in beta, and it was very fun in beta. My wife played too. We had a lot of fun playing Hearthstone back when it launched in 2014. But then it started to get very RNG heavy, and really they undermined the experience and even the competitive nature with the RNG, while at the same time demanding that you give them money to get enough cards to even like get out of rank 15 or whatever it was. Forget about getting Legend. You weren't getting Legend unless you could collect a really serious good deck for the meta, and that was probably going to require some money from you unless you were willing to just take months doing the little gold quests to like buy packs here and there and do arenas and stuff like that. It was very hard to do it free to play originally. And that's where I realized they were really extracting a lot of money from that. Basic mobile game design as far as monetization, that's going to affect all the game design. And that was Hearthstone. Now I don't know if anyone still plays Hearthstone. I think it's fallen off a lot. But then you start to get things like Overwatch. Overwatch held no interest to me. It was just Team Fortress 2, maybe like a little slicker, right? Just had no interest for me whatsoever. Lots of people liked it. If that was your jam, that's great. But I thought it was just a really boring game for Blizzard to come out with, and really didn't do anything special, unique, or interesting to me at all. I guess maybe other than like the tank characters who had shields. That was, I don't know, one interesting mechanical change. I wasn't interested in Overwatch 2. If you liked it, that's your thing. So by the time we get to now, we've had years now. You have WoW token. People can just buy gold in WoW. You've had years now of game design that undermines the player experience, not caring at all about enforcing things in the game that would improve the character experience, like banning bots or gold farming bots or gold selling or anything like that. Just zero attentiveness to the World of Warcraft or really any of their games to make it a good experience for consumers other than extracting money from them. The entire point of Hearthstone is to come out with as many expansions as you can to shake up the meta as often as you can to get people to buy more cards, to assemble the next deck for the meta. You want the meta to be shifting constantly in Hearthstone because that's what keeps people buying decks. And once you're aware of that, it's not really a very fun game to play, at least competitively. And you really just want to step back and do like the little single player adventures that you can do. That might still be fun, but otherwise, the core game really to me hasn't been fun since like 2015. So anyway, that's my thing. The decline of Blizzard's been going on for a really long time. This is not a new thing. This is just like the straw that breaks the camel's back. The truth is, Blizzard's been anti-consumer. They've not cared about their customers. They've put in design choices for their games for a long time that are there to just extract money from players, whether it's buying cosmetics or it's buying card packs or it's paying to transfer off a server so you can actually have the experience that you've bought into in World of Warcraft. They've been doing it for years at this point. They're not a pro gamer or pro consumer company right now, and if they're corporate, their problems with their corporate organization, their corporate structure, the workplace environment are all coming to light now. All of that is just flowing downhill from the reality that they are approaching things like customers are money banks and you're trying to get as much money out of them rather than making cool games. The reason we loved Blizzard in the aughts was because the games were cool. The games were made for gamers to have fun with. They were fun first. And that hasn't been the case for a long time. So thanks so much, guys. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I do have a new story out on Kindle Vela if you are interested at all in that. Otherwise, I always love it when people buy books off of Amazon or wherever. Some of them are off of Amazon too. So thanks so much, guys, and I'll see you next time. I would love to see your thoughts down below about like when you realized, like when the mask came off for how Blizzard was operating. And what Blizzard was doing and why it just wasn't as fun as it used to be. Thanks so much. Have a good one.